I always get a little concerned when I start to hear the kind of rhetoric that we're hearing from some of our politicians, even when it comes to places like Saudi Arabia. Now, one great example of this is Lindsey Graham. Now, Lindsey Graham, ever since John McCain passed away, he's been on a bit of a tear. First, of course, making an ass of himself during the Kavanaugh hearings by throwing a rage. And now he is raging at Mohammed bin Salman, that is a crown prince of Saudi Arabia. Now, during an interview on Fox and Friends, he was talking about how Mohammed bin Salman, he's got to go. Let's take a look.
In Saudi Arabia without MBS knowing it.
Who's MBS?
He's the 33-year-old crown prince who jumped over other people. He's the son of the existing king, and I think he's on a bad track. I can never do business with Saudi Arabia again until we get this behind us.
Right. And what does that mean?
That means I'm not going back to Saudi Arabia as long as this guy's in charge.
So you're saying the crown prince has to leave?
It's up to them, but I'm not going back. I've been their biggest defender on the floor of the United States Senate. This guy is a wrecking ball. He had this guy murdered in a consulate in Turkey, and to expect me to ignore it, I feel used and abused. I was on the floor every time defending Saudi Arabia because there's a good ally. There's a difference between a country and an individual. The MBS figure is, to me, toxic. He can never be a world leader on the world stage.
So what does the president do? Sanctions?
It's up to the president. But what I would do, I know what I'm going to do. We're going to sanction the hell out of Saudi Arabia. You know, we deal with bad people all the time, but this is in our face. I feel personally offended. They have nothing but contempt for us. Why would you put a guy like me and the president in this box after all the president has done? This guy's got to go. Saudi Arabia, if you're listening, there are a lot of good people you can choose, but MBS has tainted your country and tainted himself.
All right, so look, there's a lot in there that it kind of needs to be picked apart. For one, okay, he's got to go. Now, look, if you're talking about the thing that I think you're talking about, oh no. So when I hear the words, oh, that leader's got to go, and from somebody like Lindsey Graham, I automatically think regime change. That is my Pavlovian reaction, right? Like, oh God, he's going to take it. He wants to take us to another war. Has Lindsey Graham ever met a war he didn't like? No. No, he's never met a war he never liked because he loves war. He is a warmonger. And look, if given the chance, he'll be a war criminal. So definitely. Nonetheless, this is what you draw the line at. You don't draw the line at, and again, he says, I've defended Saudi Arabia so many times in the Senate. You've defended their terrible human rights record, for one. The fact that they, still cut people's heads off for punishment, cut people's hands off for punishment. They have religious police, literal Sharia law in this country. They've supported terrorists. Right now, they're using our weapons, our bombs, to destroy Yemen, to kill millions of innocent people. But Jamal Khashoggi, that's where you draw the line. Now, this is a terrible line, right? It's a terrible thing. This is a Washington Post journalist that was basically tortured, murdered, and dismembered, and then there was a cover-up. That's pretty horrible. But that doesn't mean that the shit beforehand wasn't also horrible. In fact, it is on orders of magnitude even worse than the death of a journalist. So let's be straight on that, okay? Like, that's the truth here. But this is where he draws the line. No, this is more, I think, tough talk from Lindsey Graham, who, again, without his friend John McCain, has just continued to spiral out of control and to show who he really is. And who he is, not a good person. Despite the fact that, look, I do agree that maybe we should, that we should put sanctions. I think the number one thing that we need to do is to stop basically selling Saudi Arabia weapons. Why are we selling them weapons? So that they can bomb more innocent people. No, we need to not do that. And yes, we probably should put sanctions. Not just because of this, but because of all the other terrible stuff that they are doing at this moment. There is no reason we should be allies with Saudi Arabia. And now, I'm not saying that we should be enemies and that we should, start a war with them. There's no reason that we should be friends with them either. And so, look, if Lindsey Graham were actually principled, I know, laugh along with me, then he would agree with that sentiment based on all the other things that I've mentioned before. Their grotesque human rights record, and their war with Yemen, which is a massacre. But we know where Lindsey Graham stands. All he cares about is how to enrich his donors, and his donors include oil and gas, and of course defense contractors. So, as usual, follow the money, and you'll find out exactly why these politicians are saying these particular things. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.